Hi, and welcome to Mother's Quest, a podcast for moms like me ready to live our own truly epic life. I'm Julie Neal, a life and leadership coach, community builder, writer, and mom to two high-energy boys who challenge me to grow into my best self. I'll be right there. Where was I? In the months leading up to a big milestone birthday, I decided it was time to stop sidelining my dreams and become the hero of my own journey. I knew I didn't want to do it alone, so I created this podcast to learn from other moms further ahead on their quest, so their words of wisdom and lessons learned could help light the way for mine. In truth, I created this podcast for myself, but I hope you'll come along with me and find some treasures of your own. Hello and welcome to episode number 14, the first interview in the extended season of the Mother's Quest podcast. Starting with today's interview of Amanda Steinberg, I'm excited to bring you 6 more episodes to light our way to an epic life. If you haven't listened to my solo cast from last week and would like to hear about the other upcoming guests, I invite you to listen to episode number 13 at mothersquest.com/podcast and hear what else is in store. Also at the website, you can get your free download of the Epic Life Reflection and Planning Sheets, and you can sign up for a complimentary planning session with me to help you get started using this tool. Before I let you know about today's guest, I'm excited to invite one of my oldest and dearest friends, Rachel Winter, to offer this week's dedication. Rachel is an amazing mother herself and is on a quest to bring powerful stories to life through film. She's well known as the Oscar-nominated producer of the Dallas Buyers Club and will be coming on the podcast in season 2 to share about her epic life. Here she is now with her dedication.
Well, first I wanted to say how excited I am for my best friend, Julie, who is such a rock star, for following her path. But today I'm honored to make a Mother's Quest dedication to my friend, Felicity Huffman. Felicity is not only an acclaimed actor, film and television. Most people know her from Desperate Housewives, but she was also nominated for an Oscar for Transamerica. But she is one of the most incredibly passionate, loving people. She feels so deeply and gives so much to her 2 daughters, her husband, her many, many friends. She's crazy generous in every way. She really hustles and works harder than almost anyone I know. She's just dedicated and she never loses her sense of humor. Kind of cracks me up all the time. She's always been there for me when I've needed her, and that kind of has ranged from throwing my 40th birthday party, stepping in on film projects when I'm desperate or when I'm just lucky enough to be able to get her, to helping my son get into the perfect school for his learning differences. I love her and I admire her, and I'm honored to be dedicating this Mother's Quest podcast to her.
The same qualities of hard work, hustle, and generosity that Rachel shared in her dedication, I admire in this week's guest, Amanda Steinberg. Amanda is the founder and CEO of dailyworth.com, and she just published a book titled Worth It: Your Life, Your Money, Your Terms. This past summer, Amanda was chosen as one of Oprah Winfrey's SuperSoul 100, and just recently was named to Fast Company's Most Creative People in Business, all for good reason. She has revolutionized the relationship between women and their finances. Amanda empowers women to explore the equation between their self-worth and their net worth, and to resist the conventions that keep us from viewing money as a source of personal power. With her new book as a backdrop, Amanda shares candidly about the ways her mother shaped her relationship with money, how she rebuilt her life and rewrote her money story when she found herself in debt and under the weight of a mortgage she couldn't sustain, and how founding the Daily Worth and now Worth FM is breaking the mold by bringing information and resources about money to women in unique ways. I reached out to Amanda because I'm ready to rewrite my money story. We talk candidly about how her book and a spreadsheet she shared in her Facebook group inspired me to sit down with my husband for the first time in our 20-year marriage to really understand our finances and determine our net worth, the number Amanda talks about as mattering most. Amanda's honesty, humor, and ability to make a conversation about money and investing in ourselves accessible has already shifted my life, and I'm certain you too will be inspired to look at your relationship with money in a new way. Finally, a quick note on sound quality. For reasons I don't understand, I experienced some technical difficulties with the audio on my side for this interview. We've done the best we can to improve it, but you may hear some extra background noise in parts or find my voice to sound a little distant at times. I trust that despite these difficulties, the powerful takeaways from Amanda about breaking the mold and finding your worth will still reach you. I'm Julie Neal, and this is Mother's Quest. So, Amanda Steinberg, welcome to the Mother's Quest podcast. I have been anxiously anticipating this conversation, and I'm so excited to dig in deeper with you today.
Thanks, Julie. I'm thrilled to be here.
So, I want to share just a few words about why I sought you out for the podcast before you begin to share your story. As folks who've been listening to me know, I am on a quest myself to live what I call my epic life. And I just shared a solo cast that came out this week where I reflected on the first 12 episodes of the podcast and all the lessons I've learned and the ways in which I've been integrating them and changing as a result. And then I also talked about the places where I'm really struggling and where I know I have some things I need to move through to more fully step into my epic life. And my relationship with money is one of them. So it's amazing to have this podcast as a platform for me to literally seek out my guides. And you are somebody who I just instinctively knew was going to have so many words of wisdom for me. And I've already started reading your book, and I'm in a Facebook group of yours and have begun to have some major shifts happening, but I am excited to go deeper today.
Love it. I started Daily Worth as my own personal self-help project, so I completely get it.
Yeah, parallels there. So the question I like to begin with every guest is to hear a little bit about your life as a child and what impact your mother had in shaping who you are today.
Sure. In many sense, I had kind of a typical childhood as far as, living in the suburbs, going to Little League, et cetera, et cetera. However, the thing that made it most unique was when my parents separated when I was 3 years old. I watched my mom go through a very dark phase and then shift out of the dark phase into experiencing her adolescence in her 40s. So that was really the most shaping, was having a very sad, depressed mom, probably from age 3 to age 8. And then from age 8 onward, watching my mom come to life.
Wow, that was amazing. And what was the spark for your mom to go through that transformation?
Well, I think it was, she never really wanted to nor intended to be a provider of any form. And even though she majored in math and physics and studied computer science in the early 60s, she's brilliant. Uh-huh. She never aspired to be anything but a mother. And actually, she'll secretly tell you that she thought she should be an architect, but it just wasn't really what women did back then. And it was, when she really didn't have a choice, she went back to get her MBA so that she could develop a career in technology. And as a result of that, she was a 40-year-old in class with a bunch of 25-year-olds who took her night clubbing. And she didn't know what she didn't know about what she had missed out on as far as freedom and, wild behavior. And hey, if there's nothing like being a 40-year-old going out clubbing with 25-year-old men, I would imagine that creates a spark for some people.
And so how did that really shape your life path?
Well, it was, it shaped my life path, first of all, because it was very lonely in the early days. And as a result, I spent most of my childhood on screens, whether it was TV or video games. So I became this obsessive video game kid at a very young age, which has definitely shaped a lot of my brain, which I will tell you about. But then it also shaped me in that I got to watch what liberation looks like. And I got to see how dramatically one can go from a place of darkness to a place of light, sometimes when you need to hit the reset button. So it was both learning how to survive on my own when my mom was too wrapped up in her stuff to be able to really connect with me, as well as experiencing her liberation firsthand and benefiting from her new energy.
And, before we started recording, I was telling you a little bit more about my story and how I've identified a lot with this metaphor of the hero's journey. Mm-hmm. I'm curious, what do you feel like is the metaphor that has guided you as you've been living your life so fully the last 9 years?
Interestingly, because the hero's journey is so dominant in American culture, I'm a rebel in many regards. So I'm going to rebel against things simply because they're dominant. I'm not sure that's a healthy style of being, but hey, awareness is the first step. Because of the hero's journey, there is this idea, in order for there to be a hero, there has to be a villain, right? And so I'm interested really in breaking molds. I'm not sure if I've attached myself necessarily to any other metaphor other than my fascination with how much we have to adhere to molds and how much we subscribe to social norms, and my own personal experiments in how I break those molds and then what happens, either good or bad, as a result.
So that is a powerful metaphor. And tell me a little bit more about the ways in which in your life you have broken the molds and where that has brought you today.
Well, what I realized when I had turned 30 was that even though I was raised by a single mom who was insistent that I become financially self-sustaining from a young age, I still got married, had kids, did the job, did everything that I thought I was supposed to do in order to be happy. And it turns out that I built this impossibly complicated life that was far more about my fear of not being accepted than what I was related to. And so what I did at age 30 was I separated from my then husband, and moved and basically what I attempted to do was to strip my life down to as little as possible, as few activities, as few friends, as few expenses, as few clothes, as few commitments. It was like I had strangled myself inside of all of these contracts, and the overhead of my life was more than anyone should ever be able to handle, nor was it really what I wanted. So the experiment that I ran, that was, what if I reduce myself to baseline, other than taking care of my children and not creating any sort of trauma for them, and then very selectively build back up where I knew it was related to what made me happy versus any sort of social expectation.
And so how did that lead to you creating Daily Worth? You mentioned it was your own self-help project. Tell me about that path.
Yeah, it was, I'd gone $90,000 in debt because of these commitments, not necessarily because of a shopping habit or other stereotypically female traits. It was because I'd built such a complex life and bought a house that I didn't understand, that my life spiraled out of control. And I had been the person, and we all come at money from a different place because of the way I was raised. I had always tried to be financially responsible. I never disassociated from money. I never, or intentionally anyway, I always considered money something I was interested in, and read a lot of finance books at a young age and became really good at income at a young age. But what happened is even though I followed all the steps, I did the budgets, I did the saving, I did everything, I still went $90,000 into debt. And so I started Daily Worth because I thought, I'm a pretty smart person. I try and follow the financial rules. I've been focused on making money since I was 5 years old because my mama made sure of it. And I'm still $90,000 debt. So I started Daily Worth because I wanted to break down, especially for women, where the disassociation and where the rules fall short, and then figure out how to rebuild it, just like my life, from scratch so that it makes sense and that it works.
That's so powerful. In a few minutes, we're going to get a chance to get deeper into what you've learned works and the ways in which you are making an impact for other women. But I want to start to frame living an epic life and the guideposts that I have been really bringing attention to, and hear how you approach these guideposts in your life. So the EPIC is a mnemonic acronym, and the first letter, E, stands for engaged, and that's engaged mindfully with your children. I'd love to hear the ways in which you engage mindfully with your children, especially in the midst of all of the work that you're doing and balancing those things. And I'm also curious if there's some ways in which you've brought what you've learned around money to engaging thoughtfully with your kids, if you have anything you want to share there.
Yeah. So first of all, I just want to say, I don't think I'm the poster child for the most engaged mother. So just putting that out there, I'm not going to be starting a mothering blog anytime soon. But I think the way I which, so it's interesting. I have joint custody with my ex-husband. He's an unbelievable father. And that means that I'm only with them half of the time. And even though my son has a cell phone now and we text all the time, I'm only with them half of the time. So that's really interesting. And it allows me to segment my life more, that I actually see as a benefit, especially since I have such a huge career and a lot on my plate.
Yeah.
The second way in which I really engage with my children, which is vital to me, is I've decided at a very young age, at the beginning of motherhood, that I wasn't going to follow the social constructs of what people thought a good mother is. And this is important because I think a lot of us, I think you'll hear some themes about how Amanda Steinberg approaches life. There's breastfeeding, attachment parenting, co-sleeping, always being there when they get home from school, making sure that you are with them on snow days, stuff like that. Where I found that in the beginning, I tried to follow all of those things and do all of them, and it turned me into an angry, depressed mommy.
Yeah.
And I think that what's most important is, especially if you're growing up in the Western world these days, and you're not living in Flint, Michigan, the idea that you certain aspects of breastfeeding or not breastfeeding, or co-sleeping or not co-sleeping, aren't going to have as dramatic a negative impact as we may be led to believe. It's pretty hard if you love your children unconditionally that you're going to do significant damage to them. So in that note, what I've always prioritized in terms of making sure that I'm as engaged with my children as I can be is that I'm being very selective about why I do with them what I do, to make sure that I'm balancing their happiness with my own happiness, and making sure that if we both want togetherness, we create that, and if we want separateness, we create that. And that's been a vital part of my mothering, which I know my mother did as well. And it's very liberating, because otherwise you can start to feel like you're always a bad mom. And if you feel like you're always a bad mom, then you're probably not a very present person.
Right. Well, I just want to say that I value everything you just said, and the judgment that you may not be writing mommy blogs. I actually think this perspective and the way that you are thoughtful about balancing your happiness and your children's is something that so many other mothers, including myself, can learn from you. I really appreciate it. And also, as you're talking, I was thinking about the study, and I'll find it and link it in the show notes, that at the end of the day, what really matters the most, they looked at the happiness of our children and their success in life, was the degree to which they felt loved and whether they had household chores. Those two things. So I think there is something about, stripping down to the things that matter most. And
that's fascinating.
Isn't that fascinating? And not getting lost in the trappings of what we see other people doing and what we think we should be doing.
Can I tell you a cute story? This isn't cute. It's slightly horrifying, but when my son got his cell phone, those Amber alerts about child abduction that come up, he had never really heard of child abduction before. He's 10 years old. And this came up on his phone, and he was like, "What's child abduction?" And it was like a really sad thing for me to explain to him what happens. And about 20 minutes later, he goes, "Mom, even if you had abducted me and you weren't really my mom, I'd still want you to be my mom."
Oh.
So I was like, okay, that's good.
I mean, that's the thing. At the end of the day, I think we really are, I totally believe this, that we're exactly the right parent for our children.
Yeah.
And they love us.
They do. They have a lot of room for our mistakes. And
absolutely. And they grow from it. It's actually a gift to share our mistakes and our vulnerability and our growth with our kids, because then they realize that they don't have to be perfect.
Yep, absolutely. I'm the model of imperfection and celebrating it every step of the way.
So good. And is there a quick tidbit about how you bring your learning around money to your kids?
Yeah, I'm really transparent with them about it. There are days when I'm making a lot of money and I tell them how excited I am and I show them my savings account and how it works. And then there are days where my emergency fund gets wiped out and I tell them why. And they know everything about mommy's finances. And they end up going to other people's house and be like, how much does your mom make? And it totally makes everyone uncomfortable. But, that part of it is the taboo and being open about the struggles of saving versus wanting to buy, whatever it is that you want. And it's about bringing it into awareness as is the theme of the first part of E.P.I.C.
Mm. Well, I think that's a good transition into the P in E.P.I.C about, us as mothers being passionate and purposeful also beyond our family, having those things outside of our children where we know that we're making a difference. Share a little bit more, especially these days, the ways in which you are making a difference beyond your family.
Sure. There's really two ways I'm focused on making an impact beyond my family. And the first is through my businesses, Daily Worth and Worth FM. And what they're really, Daily Worth is a media and education company, and Worth FM is a financial services platform. And what I'm doing through both of them is redefining women's relationship to money while helping them understand and gain access to the solutions that are going to help them next in their financial journey. And that to me is a huge social impact because as we all know, women are socialized or have been in some senses socialized to not see money as their job and be concerned with the power dynamic at home if they do become too interested in money, or still dealing with and healing from, money related trauma as a child. So that to me, I'm very interested in a world of women who feel as engaged with money as men. I want to know what that world looks like. And the second way is I'm on the board of an organization called One Light Global, which does direct relief for refugees. And I donated my marketing budget from my book launch to this organization if I hit a certain sales goal, which I did related to my book, which resulted in about $5,000 donation to the refugees, and actually getting to watch Zoe Wild, the executive director, navigate the camps in Belgrade on Facebook. And she's sending me videos and photos and, helping my kids really understand that everyone has the same dreams. Everyone wants the same thing at the end of the day. And there's no us versus them. And our world is wrapped up in each other, not just our own success, and teaching them that to them and showing it to them at a young age.
So amazing. I purchased your book, Worth It, around the time that you were doing this campaign and followed what you were doing. And it's so powerful and such a great example of how your success, your financial success through the book, can become an engine for you investing in the things that really matter to you.
Exactly.
That is a huge value for me. So I love learning and watching other people do it. Can you share a little bit about your book?
Yeah, of course. So I never aspired to be a book author, but fortunately I have a sharp tongue. And after 8 years of running Daily Worth on that discovery path to, well, if the current type of financial advice doesn't work, then what does? After about 8 years of doing that, I figured it out, and I demonstrated it in my own life and my own turnaround. And it was time to put it in a book. So I put it into a book, and I did it in a way fully understanding what a challenging subject this is and how much baggage we have and guilt and shame we have around money in general, our own attempts to manage money, and really focused first and foremost on making sure that it was fun to read, and didn't trigger any old past experiences that may have not been successful if you've tried to work around money in the past and haven't felt like you were successful.
I'm so glad that you wrote this book. I'm not all the way through it yet, but I've started it. And you also shared, I hope it's okay to let folks know about this,
Yeah.
shared in your Facebook group, which anybody who purchases the book can join that group. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. So what an amazing resource. And we'll include information for how people can go about doing that in the show notes. But you also shared this spreadsheet that you created that I think you use in some of the courses you teach. And it really blew my mind away. I've worked with spreadsheets before. Something about the way that you created this, where first of all, it's beautiful to look at. It's so clear, what needs to be put in there to help you get a picture of, the page that spoke the most to me was the one that helps you really see your net worth, which you talk about as being such an important root in this metaphor that you share about roots and wings. And then you have inspiring quotes in the spreadsheet. And it was the first time where I felt in my entire life motivated to really change my awareness and how I approach money. I definitely identified with this idea of being in a money coma. Where, it's been something I just don't even really like to look at, think about, talk about. And my story has been that it's the men in my life. Like my father was really good with finances and, provided well for us. And then my husband is the primary breadwinner and has really been the person to manage all of our finances. But, reading this book and seeing that spreadsheet, I totally had a breakthrough experience last night where my husband and I sat down together with the spreadsheet and he pulled out all of our accounts and all of our information and all of our debt. And for the first time, we were really partners in looking at that together. And it's something unique about the way that you share this that invited somebody like me to actually want to step through this door.
You are singing music to my heart. Let me tell you, this is my whole fascination with life, only because it pains me to see how women are socialized to delegate their finances and the risk that puts not all, but so many women in. So I'm not in the business of convincing women who aren't interested in money to be interested in money. If you don't have a pain point there and someone else that you love and trust is handling it, you may not be interested in it. But for anyone who wants to live an epic life or who is already in that transition process, either by choice or by circumstance, I want to know how to help you get there. And so I'm thrilled every time I hear it. I am just so happy because that means that my work is working.
I'll continue to keep you up to date. I know that you, in the Facebook group, you welcome us to share our experiences and then the questions that come up for us. So as I continue to move through the book, I'm sure I'll be checking in with you there.
Please. Yeah. And, there's certain things that happen in your finances. Like, I had a huge bill related to my divorce that are seemingly out of your control, or at least feel that way. But in spite of that, I'm most interested in, is your net worth moving more positive? That's the single measurement right now of whether or not, of what the actual impact looks like.
Well, let's move into that, because the I in E.P.I.C stands for invested in yourself. And as you shared this metaphor about the roots, for me, I actually always think of myself as this deeply rooted tree. When I went to coaching school, that was my purpose statement. And for me, my roots have been, all the experiences and the learning and the relationships in my life that make me who I am and that feed things I do in the world. But now I've begun thinking about my assets as part of that root system. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about how you see net worth and assets as making an investment in yourself and your life, and then any other ways that you approach investing in yourself.
Sure. So, as you go through life, anyone listening to this is in some position, has some sort of financial circumstance. And there's the reality of your finances, whether you own a house, whether you own a business, whether you own an investment account, and then what your debts are. Do you have a mortgage? Do you have credit card debt? And then layered on top of that is your level of engagement or interest in the topic. Are you married to someone? Do you have a financial advisor? Do you kind of wing it and end up bouncing checks? Or are you interested in having more control and influence and awareness over where your money is? As a result, you may have already thought about these things, or you may be totally new to the subject. Most women are very new to the subject because women's media and women's socialization up until very, very recently has really only focused on women entering the workforce and budgeting. That's pretty much what's come into our sphere. But the broader picture is different than that, because the reality is, whether we like it or not, is that income is not guaranteed. It's great when we have the strength and the health and the fortitude to work and to generate income. However, at certain times in your life, you're either going to have to stop working or you're going to want to stop working. And that's where women really are not set up to be prepared for that, or at least not set up to understand how they are prepared for that. And so that's why the core piece of the book Worth It is about understanding your roots and wings, and specifically your roots being your assets. And what an asset is its ownership of something, whether it's real estate or equity or a business, so that you are building value in something that can create income for you when you no longer can or want to work. This is a shift for women who are often thinking, not everyone, but often thinking, how do I create a budget so that I can eke out $200 at the end of the month and put it into a savings account and feel like I'm nowhere near retirement goals, which is typically how folks work and why they get frustrated, because you feel like you're never getting anywhere. Flip that and say, what are the assets I'm going to invest in for the long term? What's the risk? What's the cost? How much do I need to understand before I start doing this? What's the one that I want to pick that fits my lifestyle the best? Like, I know I need to own a house, or I know that I have to be an entrepreneur. And then what is the most efficient means through which you create it as an asset and a growing asset, not a liability? Because sometimes your assets can actually cost you more than they earn. That's really the essence of what I'm working toward, is not just helping women budget and save for the short term, but build security for the long term.
Just holding this long-term view. What are some other ways in which you have invested in yourself as you've been on this path?
I have invested in extensive international travel since I was 16. I've spent a healthy portion of money just because understanding humans around the world is important to me, and exhilarating and eye-opening. It's like things how you think things are and aren't how they are other places. Like, for example, I went to West Africa when I was in high school, and I'd perceived African culture through the media to be impoverished and depressed. And I went to Senegal, and it was the opposite. It was these people had very little money, but they had more exuberance and happiness and generosity than anybody I met in the United States. I've been to Dubai twice in the last 5 years, and that was incredible because being Jewish and being from the United States, there was a lot of buzz around me of, are you going to be safe? Is it an okay place to go? And, how do you dress? And even though many folks in Dubai wear the traditional Middle Eastern dress, I never felt safer or threatened or discriminated against, and I could wear whatever I wanted within reason, and I was fine. So it's just good to know, good to break out of your molds about how you think things are and have an open mind. And then the other way that I invested in myself is I've invested deeply in my psychological transformation, whether it's therapy or transformational workshops or mindfulness or things like Burning Man, or you name it, I've tried it. And that's really about making sure, especially as a somewhat anxious person, which I am, making sure that I structure in breathing so that my body relaxes, so that I'm not driving on ego all the time, and that I can feel the great joy that comes from pure service in the world, as opposed to just trying to scratch the itch of my ego all day long. And that's you have to proactively learn how to do that. It's not something that comes naturally to humans, I've found.
Yeah. The question that's coming up for me that you may have some wisdom on, I would say one of the things I've been struggling with the most as I've stepped into becoming an entrepreneur and creating this personal venture is investing in myself and investing in my own vision and dream. And it feels scary. And I notice all these times where I hesitate because I think, I'm at the end of the day afraid of failure. Do you have any ways in which you've moved through that?
Yeah. First is if you play a lot of video games, you won't see failure as a bad thing. You'll see it as something that's expected. So you're going to fail all the time. And if you don't fail, it means you're not trying anything, you know? The second thing is that debt is not bad. Expensive debt that you're doing that's not going to create a return for you in the future is more expensive than it needs to be. Debt that you're investing in your business so that you can generate revenue, more revenue later, could end up having a higher return on the investment than not doing it. The really important thing to understand about debt really is the cost of that debt. Because if you're able to take out a small home equity line of credit, I don't recommend a big one, versus putting it on your credit card, and you're paying 3.5% on that, then that's pretty inexpensive debt. It's really just the fact that you're going to have to pay, you're going to have the cost of the loan pay down to pay about, but it's not expensive debt. It's the credit card debt that's the most expensive, but sometimes it is necessary to get through life and also to build your dream. And I would say there is a greater risk of not taking risks than thinking about the risks themselves.
Can you say that one more time?
Yep. Not taking a risk is a bigger risk than dealing with and measuring and learning how to manage the risks you do take.
Yeah. Okay. Thank goodness this is recorded. I feel like I need to take that message in a few times. So.
Well, think about it. I mean, you're 80 years old and you're looking back on your life. Are you going to be more upset about your $20,000 of credit card debt or the fact that you didn't try?
Right.
What's going to be more upsetting to you?
It's the experiences that you don't seize other than feel regret. Yeah. Really powerful. So the C in EPIC stands for connected, and it's about being part of drawing on a strong support network so that you're not alone as you're on your personal journey. Where are the places where you have found connection?
If anything, I've overdone it in this category my whole life. So where do I even begin? I've always been a member of professional organizations. I've joined, honestly, we could be here all day. Would you mind refining the question slightly, just because I don't even know where to begin?
Well, let's do it now. So, you and I were chatting about how you're in a unique place in your, in the growth of what you've been working on right now. So as as you've been launching your book and bringing Worth FM to the world, where have you noticed you've needed to draw the most on others to support you, and how are you doing that in your present day?
What I do is I always start out being an entrepreneur with a vision of the problem I'm solving and the product I want to build. What I've always done since I was 21 and started my first venture was seek out someone who's done it before to get their advice. And the critical thing to do if you want to keep getting someone's advice is do what they advise you. If they see that you're taking their words seriously and implementing them, they'll give you more advice. And so from there, it just becomes a listening process of the people who've already gotten to where I want to go. And they often will tell me, Amanda, you should be doing this. Amanda, you shouldn't be doing that. And using other people as a guide for my direction, as opposed to thinking I know, because I haven't done it yet. So I don't really know. It's finding really great mentors and then using that as a springboard when they'll say, for example, Amanda, you're a great leader, but you're not a great manager. You need a really good manager. So then I go out and I look for that really great manager. And then the manager says, Amanda, you really should be on TV more, but you should not be doing, the product engineering. Okay, fine. I need to make sure that she has the right product engineer and that we hire for that next. So it's really about listening to the experts that you surround yourself in terms of the queue of who else you look for.
That's amazing advice. And something that
it's survival as an entrepreneur for 20 years. Otherwise you fail.
Well, and it's so true. And this is exactly why, I've created the podcast is just, there's no reason why you need to be in the dark. I liked this idea of the hero's journey in terms of stepping into your own empowerment. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to buy into this idea that I have to be in a dark cave all by myself.
Yep.
I really wanted other people to help light the way for me. But I love this attention too that you just named about, and then when you get the great guidance and advice,
Yep.
And if it's uncomfortable or you're not sure how to do it right away, to really listen, try some of those things. So I have a key question then, in the realm of asking you for some advice. Part of why I wanted to create Mother's Quest, in addition to my own personal growth and development, is that I really want it to become an engine for change. I believe that mothers are uniquely powerful and capable to make change in the world, that they see things through the lens of what they've experienced with their children, that really put them closer to a lot of solutions. And I'd like to be a philanthropist and an investor someday to support mothers to bring these ideas to the world. What would be your biggest piece of advice for me to go from, my new effort that's just getting off the ground to being able to step into, at some point, the place of being an investor?
That's a fascinating question, because I too have the same goal that's why I'm interested in being an investor, so I can become a philanthropist, and we're totally aligned there. I would say, have you done Money Type yet?
I did. Yeah. I have my results.
Let me guess. Are you a visionary?
Well, so I was, I heard you say that you're always a combination of things. So I had 3 things that were all at the top. My number one was independent. Just to quickly name this, that you have this quiz that anybody can take for free that helps you name your money type. That's what we're talking about right now. And it's a really great tool, and we'll link that as well. So my number one was independent, but then right next to it was visionary and epicure. And epicure for me, I am not a material person. I really could care less about clothes or jewelry or purses, but I do care about experiences and opportunities for learning and growth. So I think that was why that one was kind of high.
Yeah, epicure can really be about sensory pleasure. It doesn't mean that needs to be derived through material goods. It can be derived through other types of external experiences. Well, fantastic. I mean, I love that you're an independent. So that's what I'm going to do is, first of all, Money Type is something that I developed to help people reach their financial ideals by how they see themselves and what their personal narratives are. So if you tell someone who's an independent to set financial goals, you're actually not going to be served by that as financial goals, because eventually you too are going to try and rebel against them, because the defining characteristic of an independent is someone who doesn't want to be beholden to systems. Does that resonate with you?
Well, I think it's part of why I've not wanted to take charge of money before.
Exactly.
I don't want to be confined. I don't want to now start, because I'm aware of the numbers, not investing in the things that I think are important in my life. I've been, I think, a little bit afraid that it's going to stop me from living the life the way I want to.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I appreciate that you're engaging with money, because when you go to moneytype.me and find out your money type, independents are the least likely to be interested in money, and they're the hardest ones to engage, because freedom from things like money are your greatest motivator.
So get out of this bind.
Yeah. So essentially what you do is you recognize what your patterns are and what your motivation is. And it's not necessarily a bad thing as long as you're aware of it. And what we did with Money Type was, rather than giving everyone the same advice, which is what so traditionally you find, you need to set goals, you need to create a plan, is instead to go to Money Type and read the advice that it gives you, and follow the advice that it gives you, so that you avoid your sabotage patterns. Like, for example, the thing for you that's most dangerous is that you're going to disengage, especially if you set up a goal and then you don't hit it. You're gonna be like, forget this, 6 months from now, But at the same time, for an independent, so automation is something that's really important, because you are more likely and more subject to disassociation than, say, the other extreme, which is the producer, who's more likely to be planning oriented and have the most ease with concepts of money. For me, I'm the strongest on the visionary scale. It sounds like you have a lot of visionary as well. Visionaries actually take too much risk at times. I don't even see risk. I only see the risk of not doing something. I rarely see the risk of doing something. I'm like, I'll figure it out. Not always the case. So for me, keeping a much bigger liquid savings account than I might otherwise is really important, because I just don't see a lot of the things that come and whack me and wipe out my cash when I least expect it, because I'm moving so fast. So it's really about understanding yourself and preparing yourself for the things that you know are probably going to go wrong.
Yeah. And so if I continue to participate over at Worth FM, and if I decide, I know that you're starting to open that up to people that want to use accounts there for their saving and investing, I will get specialized advice for me, right? Based on my money type. Is that correct?
Yep. You will right now. Money type is integrated into Worth FM. So if you want to build an emergency fund, or you want to start investing for retirement, or just investing in general, you can create one account on Worth FM and you get all three options presented to you, like a bento box. That's very trendy right now. And right now it's, we integrate money type into it. In the future, my dream is that the entire advice dashboard that you see when it loads is attuned to your money type. We haven't engineered that yet, but that's something that we are evaluating the priority of.
Amazing. Well, I know that you are incredibly busy. You have a lot going on right now, and I'm so grateful that we have this time, and we're, almost at the end of it. Do you have a couple more minutes to close us out?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So what I'd like to do is invite every guest to offer myself and anyone who wants to come along with me some challenge. And it could also be, a gift or an offering that you'd like us to take advantage of. What would be your number one thing that you'd like me to take you up on?
I would like you to find the most. I'm going to do something self-interested, just because, and then I'll do something not self-interested. So the self-interested thing is, I would love to know what you found to be the most powerful quote from Worth It, and to post it on Facebook so far. I'm really interested in what everyone's telling me it's resonating, but I need to know what specifically is resonating. So that would be super helpful. And then the second thing is I would love for you to have the experience in the next couple of days of, when you're about to spend money on something, don't spend money on it, and move whatever that money was into your savings account. So you're getting that thrill of saving. That's something I'm really encouraging people to do, is not just to choose not to buy something, but to then take that exact amount and move it into your savings account. It's the way I'm helping reprogram women to save more. And so if you could do that and report back to me personally how that was for you, and if it was possible, it's something I'm studying in the field.
Okay, I can do that. And then again, we'll invite anybody who, certainly I would encourage people to get the book. It's so great. And then if they buy the book and share, just the confirmation of that, they can join the Facebook group, and then they could access that spreadsheet that I used, which was so incredible. And then folks can also take the money type quiz. So there's so many resources that you've already.
There's a lot. It's like, which one do I do first? If you want to do anything, just sign up for the Daily Worth newsletter, and it'll kind of come to you over time.
Oh yeah, that's right. We didn't even mention that yet, which has 1 million subscribers now.
1 million subscribers. That's 8 years. So it's been a while.
Yeah. So many great resources out there. Amanda, I always close with acknowledgements. I like to share what my biggest takeaways are from the conversation, and then just hear from you if there's anything that is feeling more clear for you as a result of the conversation we just had.
Sure.
So I want to say that I love this idea about breaking the molds, and the many ways in which you've done that throughout your whole life. And the ways in which it is really empowering and also guides the choices you make. Like, I was struck by even your love of international travel. For you, it's a way to get perspective so that you can break out of some of the social confines that you see here, and how you do that as a mom, and how you just simplified. And hearing you talk about the way that you've flipped the script for women, and all of these incredible resources, is just very inspiring to me. And I hope to follow in your footsteps, to use whatever I build with Mother's Quest to be an engine for change. Thank you.
Amazing. Well, thank you. The thing I've taken away is that I really didn't feel confident in talking about how I engage with my children, because I am on my phone a lot. So I'm not trying to fix myself, but I am on a discovery process of how I feel like when I put my phone down, I end up picking it up and being yelled at by someone for not having seen something sooner. So that's the thing that I want to explore, kind of that radical engagement with my kids more, because it's hard for me. So.
Yeah. Well, we can support one another in that. In the solo cast that I came out this week, the other challenge I talked about, in addition to my relationship with money, is being more present with my kids and putting my phone away as I move more into this, online business social world. I can feel myself falling down the slope. So this week I took the Facebook app off my phone.
Wow.
You might explore even for just a weekend.
Oh my God. But then I'm afraid there's going to be all this stuff happening in the book club. I'm not going to know about it. But yes, you're right. No, this is exactly the, this is a very healthy, I need to live the life that I aspire to and preach to others, or else it's bullshit and it's not going to help anybody.
Yes. Well, I hope Mother's Quest can be a source of some inspiration for you.
Absolutely.
A lot of these things. And again, I'm so grateful knowing how much you have on your plate that you made the time for this conversation. I know there are
this is my favorite thing. I wish I could do this all day. I'm working towards just doing this all day. Almost there.
That's great. Well, we'll have you on for a part 2, and we can go deeper as I continue down my path. But thank you again. So much appreciation. And I will make sure to get back to you on those challenges.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much for coming along with me on this episode of the Mother's Quest podcast. I hope this conversation sparked something that will help you live your epic life. If you'd like to get show notes and learn more about how to join the Mother's Quest community, head over to mothersquest.com. And while you're there, I would love it if you would follow the prompts to subscribe, leave a review on iTunes, and help us spread the word. I want to end with some words to light the way on your quest. Seize the day, love your people, honor your gifts. Until next time.